Good afternoon and welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Let me start with macro thoughts because so much is going on. I responded to Hu Ziyin of the China Daily. I said the precision and nuance of the recent response around the currency in particular and its evident correlation with the US stock market has been very sophisticated. I was referring to the Chinese response to allow the currency to slide and then bring it back into line. And the correlation coefficient between the currency sliding and the US stock market falling was practically 100%. Who tweeted, "This kind of soft tone by Trump administration is tailor-made for US stock markets. Their lies have become bubbles flooding the US stock markets. Whether or not there will be negotiations, China won't yield to Washington's hegemony. We're prepared for new US tariffs." And this, he's referencing what I was writing about in May when I said President Trump is highly tuned to the markets and in fact something of a 21st century artiste. His positive trade war tweets are timed around the US market hours and designed to soothe, massage and finesse US asset prices. And he turns more negative in Chinese trading hours. Very interesting article in Bloomberg Quint by George Magnus. One slide is gold standard moment for China. Allowing the yuan to slide below 7 is a watershed moment for currency markets that's symbolically equivalent to the US and other countries abandoning the gold standard in the interwar period. The collapse of the post-war Bretton Woods system of fixed exchange rates 4 decades ago, the implications for the global economy are equally significant. The world's major currencies aren't tethered in the way they were in those periods, but gold and Bretton Woods both served as anchors for the world's monetary system. And their demise reflected the economic and political disarray of their times. Today, the yuan is semi-pegged to the US dollar. The arrangement serves as an anchor for China's financial system, now the world's largest by assets. It's liable to set off chain reactions inside and outside China. That's why the loosening in currency policy by the People's Bank of China this week, while it may seem unremarkable for most people, is an important development. As I wrote over the weekend, the most important currency to watch right now is the yuan, and we're currently trading at 707.37 on the offshore market. Toni Fratto, we're in that bizarro world where you can be a currency manipulator if you fail to manipulate your currency. And Asia Times, that leaves Trump with few good alternatives. He has already fired his reserve ammunition, or rather threatened to fire it on September 1, when the new round of tariffs will take effect. And then I found this interesting. Lisa Abramovitz, the US's latest trade moves against China result from Trump acting on his own without advice from aides. And I said, that's interesting. Sources looking to be semi-detached from these latest developments. Paul Krugman, China was a currency manipulator in 2010 to 2011, but at this point, if anything, it's keeping the renminbi artificially high. JS Blockland, gold and Bitcoin in one chart. Gold, spot gold is at 1489.54 and Bitcoin at 11,566. As I said in June, Bitcoin has never been about its utility, but all about its safe haven, non-correlated asset status. And then in 17th of June, I was talking about how the enigmatic and mercurial fugitive and Bitcoin evangelist John McAfee always seems to pop up in my feed like an acid trip whenever Bitcoin is doing its parabola imitation. Virilio captured the essence of our 21st century zeitgeist with this quote: "Wealth is the hidden side of speed, and speed the hidden side of wealth." Home thoughts: don't ever think I fell for you or fell over you. I didn't fall in love, I rose in it. Toni Morrison, rest in peace. Birth, life and death each took place on the hidden side of a leaf. And she really was a dynamic thinker. I was also reading some Octavio Paz last night, Counterparts. In my body you search the mountain for the sun buried in its forest. In your body I search for the boat adrift in the middle of the night. The street, here is a long and silent street. I walk in blackness and I stumble and I fall and rise and I walk blind, my feet trampling the silent stones and the dry leaves. Someone behind me also tramples stones, leaves. If I slow down, he slows. If I run, he runs. I turn, nobody. Everything dark and doorless, only my steps aware of me. I turning and turning among these corners which lead forever to the street, where nobody waits for, nobody follows me, where I pursue a man who stumbles and rises and says when he sees me, nobody. And then I like this: love is the revelation of the other person's freedom. Yes, history is our landscape or setting, and we live through it. But the real drama, the real comedy also is within us. And I think we can say the same for someone of the 5th century or for someone of a future century. I like this by Olivia Steele via the Saatchi Gallery. Everything you need is inside you. Hassan Rouhani, a strait for a strait. It can't be that the Strait of Hormuz is free for you and the Strait of Gibraltar is not free for us. May, when I was writing about Iran, I said the Iranians will surely manage to shutter the Strait of Hormuz even after an asymmetric fashion. Forget Iran, maximum pressure has shifted to China. This is zero hedge. China has had to respond to the riots in Hong Kong with a firm hand and has been backed into a dangerous situation to quell the unrest. Hong Kong is a key cog in the West's ability to control China's growth, so destabilizing it now makes sense. One can only hope that he's right about this. Since Trump's refusal to go to war in June, he has stepped up his attacks on China in ways that tell me Bolton isn't done just yet and that Trump may not be fully under their control, but he's also not anywhere close to a free actor. And I recall President Obama describing the presidency thus. He said, "It was like being a train driver. The rails are laid and the direction set, and the president can speed up or slow down, but nothing more." And previously described Hong Kong as being part of the tinderbox that is the periphery. Be water, Bruce Lee's idea of how to overcome what may seem like insurmountable fear. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. Water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Taking the concept even further, protesters have even formulated 4 principles. Be strong as ice, be fluid like water, gather like dew, scatter like mist. My article over the weekend was What's Your Road, Man? Holy Boy Road, Madman Road, Rainbow Road, Guppy Road, any road. It's an anywhere road for anybody, anyhow. Where, body, how. As I watched the pound fall like a stone, I could not help wondering if this sterling moment is precisely like it was in 1992, a no-brainer. Boris isn't bluffing. Every action, every appointment, every word since he entered number 10 signals the same thing. Britain is leaving the EU on the 31st of October. And the key question I ask, can Prime Minister Johnson self-eject Britain? Can he be stopped? This is a political calculation. Prime Minister Johnson has elected to take quite properly an impossible is nothing and can-do political posture, but the bottom line is, can he swing it? If he can swing it, then he has to face down the whispering death. That was Michael Holding, who was thus nicknamed because he was exactly that when he opened the bowling for the West Indies. That will be the foreign exchange markets. The most important currency, as I've said before, to watch is the Yuan. And I was saying, if President Trump is serious about his warfare strategy, he needs to add currency warfare to his tariff, sanction, and linguistic warfare arsenal. I find it curious that such a stable genius has yet to calculate that a strong dollar is infinitely better. And if he's serious about his warfare strategy, he needs to add currency warfare to his tariff, sanction, and linguistic warfare arsenal. My perspective about the dollar is this, and note well, it's just a fraction under its 2019 high. Even after a rate cut, there is very little President Trump can do. In fact, the risk is this, that when the market sees he's powerless, the dollar might lift off like the proverbial parabola. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 112.02, dollar index 97.592, Japanese yen 106.21, Swiss franc 0.9762. The pounds had a bit of a pop, 121.81. The Australian dollar 0.6721, little bit of a bounce after falling below 67. India rupee, where they've cut rates, 70.9465. South Korean won, 1215.85. Brazilian real, 396.03. Egyptian pound, 16.5545. And the South African rand, 14.9633. Dollar index, this is a chart from AfCTA markets. I still see us launching beyond 100. Euro dollar, that had a counter trend bounce from like 110.30 up to here, 112. I expect us to resume the slide soon. I think what it is, euro is being used as a funding currency, and essentially that some of those trades have been taken off. New Zealand cut rates by 50 basis points instead of the expected 25. The Kiwi slumped. It's last trading at 64.11. The Aussie dropped to the lowest since 2009, and we're currently trading at 0.6719. Commodity markets, gold remains a rocket ship, now at 1491 last, and it looks as if it wants to go higher. WTI, Raoul says, feels like the death flush of WTI crude oil is upon us. Buckle up. Last at $53.45. Emerging markets were experiencing what I characterized as the China-EM negative feedback contagion loop late last year. A pact has been reached in Mozambique, but prospects for peace still uncertain. With the handshake, Mozambique's leaders hope to close the book on a decades-long conflict on Tuesday, but an election in October and new causes of violence mean lasting peace is far from assured. Analysts say the new accord, encompassing a permanent end to hostilities, constitutional changes, and the disarming and reintegration of Renamo fighters into the security forces or civilian life, offers the best hope yet for a lasting solution to the conflict. All of us have to be optimistic, because if nobody believes in peace, there will be no peace, said Felipe Donoso. However, if Renamo does not achieve its election goals of winning governorships and feels cheated by Frelimo, the accord could quickly come undone. Then the whole thing will collapse, said Joseph Hanlon. The value of trade between the US and sub-Saharan Africa was $41.2 billion last year, making the US the region's third largest trading partner. Trade with China was worth 3.5 times more. African economies are small and fragmented, Muchanga said. Bilateral agreements reinforce fragmentation of those markets. To replace AGOA, we would like to see an agreement between the whole of Africa and the US. The US is saying they'd prefer to do it individually. The US currently only has one free trade agreement on the African continent with Morocco. Nagy said that would be used as a model for others when AGOA expires. The AGOA preference scheme is underutilized, and that's why it's going to be very difficult to renew it in 2025. The new continent-wide free trade agreement will help businesses gain experience to supply to a bigger market and export more goods to the rest of the world. As I wrote at the end of July, Africa is proudly moving counter-trend with the AfCTA, and it is, in my view, a silver bullet. Of course, the devil is in the details of the execution, and such things can simply fall apart in a deluge of non-tariff barriers. But it is a silver bullet, particularly if we allow the free circulation of our people, who are natural entrepreneurs. Just look outside. There are markets just about everywhere. Interesting interview I saw with Gerald Horn, professor of history at the University of Houston, and he says the US strategy in Africa is all about China. Jumia launched its IPO on April 11th at a price of $14.50. May 1st, the market hit $46.99. And then market closed yesterday at $13.81. Through the IPO floor, Glencore plans to shut giant cobalt and copper mine in the Congo. Announcement that Glencore will close its Mutanda mine is expected to come as the company lays out an overhaul of its key African copper and cobalt business. It has released first half results today, which were quite soft. Decision to shutter the mine highlights how quickly cobalt has shifted from a prized asset to a headache. After quadrupling in 2 years, prices have collapsed to the lowest since 2016 as new supplies pour into the market. South African all shares up 4.41% this year, dollar rand coming for another test of 15. Egyptian pound 16.556. The IMF came through on a tranche there. EGX 30 up 4.76% year to date. Nigerian all share down 12.42% year to date. Ghana's stock composite index down 7.67% year to date. Kenya was moving into a cashless economy. This trend is now in danger of reversal. This is the previous central bank governor. The tax policy and design of taxes on retail electronic transactions as well as bank transactions have the potential to reverse the gains that technology has pushed Kenya to the frontier of electronic payments and financial inclusion and back to cash preference and financial exclusion for low-income workers. Kenya shilling was lost at 103.08. Nairobi all shares up 4.9% year to date. NSE 20 is at a multi-year low, down 9.94% year to date. Thank you for stopping by.